It's showtime.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
You know, the right to bear arms is because that's the last form of defense against tyranny.
Washington is fundamentally corrupt. There are more words in the IRS code than there are in the Bible.
Made in America, heard around the world. You're listening to Blunt Force Truth. I'm Chuck Woolery, along with my co-host Mark Young, and we are with you in 2 and 2.
We are here. Things, you know, Chuck, I was getting ready for this morning's show, and I'm like, I don't know what we'll talk about. There's just not much going on.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just packed. Everything is just exploding in our faces. It's interesting.
This is the presidential election that never stops.
Never. I wonder if people are tired of it. I mean, it gives us something to talk about, gives the news. I mean, the news is like to the point where they're just they're making stuff up to talk about as if there weren't enough. And I just wonder if people just get tired of it.
You would think that there could well be a level of fatigue. And,
yes.
and I'll tell you where I think that fatigue is going to kick in, buddy. I think that fatigue is going to kick in the 2020 election when people are going to get tired of hearing Donald Trump is this and he's that and he's a felon and he's this. And they're going to say, screw it. You people have been saying this for 4 years and you've done nothing.
Well, they've been saying it for 2 years and they've done nothing. I mean,
exactly.
And they don't continue to do anything either. I mean, you know, just languishing in Congress. Everything is languishing in Congress.
So you look at Jerry Nadler right now. Now, Jerry Nadler.
Please don't make me.
Jerry the Comb-Over is Jerry the Comb-Over is the guy who created the laws, who sponsored the laws that made it so that you cannot turn over. So the Attorney General can't turn over a special prosecutor report unredacted.
You know, there's a connection with a friend of ours that we don't know, but he's a friend of ours, and that's Mark Levin. Do you know the connection with Jerry Nadler and Mark Levin?
No, what is the connection?
They went to college together. They both went to school together.
Jerry Nadler went to a college?
Well, yeah. I mean, Mark Levin said, you know, he was an idiot then. He's a moron now. He's graduated.
Wow. Think about that. Levin and Nadler.
I mean, really.
How would you like to have been that professor with two ends of the continuum?
Fun. Yeah.
I've got this brilliant attorney on one end and I have a moron on the other side of my classroom. How do you even teach that room?
I have no idea.
So Comb-Over Nadler says that we have to have this unredacted version. Now, Nadler knows that Barr can't release an unredacted version because Nadler made the law that says it.
It's against the law because they're usually, aren't they, grand jury thing? People are protected by the grand jury.
Right, but it was a law Nadler made.
Yeah, does that ever stop them?
And he made it to try to cover for Clinton.
Exactly. It never stops them. They just keep on going. And most people, by the way, and I understand this, don't have any clue what this is all about. They really don't know. And so they can just kind of weave the narrative any way they want to. And people go, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So here's the thing. Nadler, this is what I believe is going on. I don't have any evidence to this. This is just my own opinion.
But that's what we are here. We're opinion. We're not news people.
And I am the leading authority on my own opinion.
Good for you.
Unless my wife is in the room, then she is the leading authority on my opinion.
I know how that works.
So since she is not in the room, I have the pleasure of being the leading authority. And as the leading authority of my own opinion, I believe that Nadler has no intention of ever getting an unredacted version of the Mueller report because this is such a nothing report, because there is no collusion, there is no obstruction, there is nothing. Right. So their only hope is to tell the American people the smoking gun is in that less than 5% of the report that's redacted.
Well, I heard
That's
one
where
guy
the
say,
evil is.
I heard one guy say, you know, a comma could change everything.
I almost, in some regard, I almost wish they would just release an unredacted version, except it would cause grief for innocent people.
Well, yeah, that's the point. It causes grief for innocent people. It attaches them to this horrible investigation that's gone on for the last 2 years and just consumed the news that we've had to listen to for 2 years. So sure, I don't blame him for not doing that. Plus, it's against the law. But Jerry Nadler could read it if he wanted to. All you got to do is walk across. Well, it is kind of a walk, so maybe he could take a scooter across to wherever this thing is held.
Hover round, maybe.
Hover round. Sure, take one of those.
Don't take anything too fast because we don't want the comb over to blow up.
No. I'm not going to attack him physically. I mean,
I am. I'm actually that shallow.
I know. He can go over and read this thing if he wants to, and he doesn't want to, because tell us the reason that Jerry Nadler decided he doesn't want to read the unredacted version.
No, he can't read it, Chuck.
Can't read it. Can't do it. He forced himself to do it.
He says that if he goes and reads the report, it will be unfair to his fellow congressmen who don't have that opportunity, and he can't disadvantage them. He has to be fair.
Yeah. So in the Democrat Party, rank does not have its privileges.
No.
And if you believe that for 2 seconds, they're just using this as cover. That's all. It's just.
Well, what do you think of my idea? I don't think they want it unredacted. I think they want to keep playing the redaction.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. They'll just twist and turn this thing as long as they possibly can with the compliant press and media who will back them up and say anything that they want them to say. Or actually, in some cases, I think the press will make it up so that the Democrats can then, say what they want to say, knowing they have cover no matter what, which is really the one thing that's frustrating and irritating to anyone who pays attention is how much cover the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Boston Globe, papers like that, and then you get into CNN and MSNBC, how much cover they will give these Democrats. It's just amazing. These people who are speaking truth to power are not speaking truth to power. They're part of the power.
By the way, you're familiar with the group Code Pink?
We're all familiar with that.
Code Pink claims that the Washington Times, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN and MSNBC are all colluding with the president.
With the president?
Yes, I'm not making this up. No, you're thinking
because
you are thinking I've just dropped into a Pelosi dementia moment.
Yeah, right.
That is not the case.
No.
They are claiming that those four entities are colluding with the president.
To do what?
To hide the goodness of Maduro and the success of Venezuela.
Oh my gosh, come on.
It's on their website, man.
It's so asinine. It's just not even worth, are you kidding me?
It is right on their website. The leader of the group, which is called, her name is Medea Benjamin. And now when I hear that, I see Tyler Perry. Okay. Don't you when I say Medea Benjamin, don't you see Tyler Perry in drag when I say that?
All right, I got you.
She is actually a white female.
Of course she is.
I do not know if she actually identifies as a female. I know that when I look at her, she appears to be a white female.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, Code Pink has actually taken the Venezuelan embassy in Washington, D.C. hostage. Yeah, you're not hearing about this on the news, are you?
No, what is with the left and adopting all of these communist? I mean, Maduro's a communist. He's very friendly with Cuba. He's very friendly with Russia. Those are his buds. And you get these people in office and they completely destroy a country. I mean, I'm not sure that people understand that Venezuela is the richest country in the Southern Hemisphere. I mean, they're loaded with oil. And always have been, and the interesting part about it is they're the richest. And when I was there, the last time I was there, I was in Caracas, I guess maybe in the 80s or 90s, early 90s, and it was a slum. It was basically just a slum. Even back then. I don't know who was in charge of it then. I didn't care. I was there to play tennis, but
because you're just a rich white privilege.
I was a rich white privileged
you just blew into their
who was
country
down there
to play
playing tennis in a richest starving people's place in America, in the South Americans.
Away from me, peasant. I have a tennis game.
But how do they do that? I mean, it's like, all the wealth is concentrated at the top and there's no middle class and everybody else is just poor, which is how socialism works. You have two classes. You have an underclass and you have an overclass. The overclass gets everything and doles out what they want to the underclass. And then the underclass just keeps voting for them.
Code Pink claims that they are in the Venezuelan embassy as the invited guest of Maduro.
I'll bet.
That they have taken it over. They're doing a sit-in. They won't leave. And they are there to, one, influence the U.S. government and their colluding friends at CNN and MSNBC to stop trying to make these negative reports about Venezuela. and they are there to convince the Venezuelan people to stop this coup against their legitimate president and understand that dictatorships are good for people.
And so are monarchies, too, so both. Did you notice that almost every socialist country in Europe and around the world has at one time had been a monarchy?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But what kind of lunatic takes over an embassy because the people are eating zoo animals and rats and starving in the streets, and you people should be grateful for it? We're here to tell you how grateful you should be for this.
Is that a question? I can't imagine any kind of answer to that other than, it's just ridiculous.
But think about this. Think about Breadline Bernie. What is Breadline Bernie? Yeah, Breadline Bernie says, when asked.
Bernie's down 20 points to Biden. Did you know that?
Is he down 20 points?
Yeah, maybe even more. It's like a huge gap. Biden is just blowing everybody. 32 points. There you go.
He's 32 behind it?
Yeah, I think Bernie jumped the shark last election. He just finally went, okay, never mind.
What's the deal with Breadline Bernie? So think about this. Breadline says it is better that all the people stand in a breadline than only the poorest people are in a breadline and the rich people have all the bread. So he's actually saying breadlines are good.
How about no breadlines? I think that's better.
You're just fantasizing now.
Yeah. I'm a capitalist. What do I know?
In fact, Bernie said he wouldn't call Venezuelan dictator a dictator. He would call Trump a dictator.
Well, of course, because Trump's a capitalist, and his love of his life is, a communist, Marxist, socialist dictator. But that's the left. I mean, the left has always been in love with these people. Jimmy Carter was in love with them. Show me a dictator he didn't love.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that one.
Well, it's true. I mean, it just goes back forever. I do know why, but I don't know why. I don't know why people fall for it and people believe in it. But, it's different strokes for different folks, as they say in the 60s.
Well, I have a question for you, Chuck.
Lord, I hope I can answer it.
This comes out of UC Berkeley.
Oh, I can't answer this, I'm sure. Go ahead.
UC Berkeley says that straight people don't know the definition of being straight.
And how do they know that? And what is that? Straight people don't know the definition of being straight.
Correct. Okay. Wait a minute. Let me explain.
Oh, yeah. I'll wait.
The Center for Heterosexuality.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, we have a center.
We do. The natural attraction of one sex to the other isn't just being attracted to the opposite sex.
Yeah, it's just being attracted.
It has created a list of LGBTQ plus. They added a plus sign.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's because there's 75 other ones, right?
Yeah, there's only 26 letters in the alphabet. I don't know how they can get this. So the LGBTQ plus friendly terms to help define sexuality. The organization guide says that heterosexuality is a person who is attracted to a gender other than their own, but there are 58 genders.
Well, so this is like an animal lover. If you love a dog and you love a cat, and you love a bird.
If I self-identified as a transsexual table leg.
So they won't be happy until everybody's just considered transsexual, LBGDBQ, XYZ, whatever. I mean, they keep running out of letters because, there's nowhere else to go. Or maybe there are other places to go. We just haven't plumbed the depths of their, whatever.
So like I said, if I was a transsexual, unidentified, self-identified myself as a table leg.
Yeah.
And you were attracted to me, you would still be heterosexual because you are not a transsexual unidentified table leg. So therefore, you are attracted to something other than yourself. That's heterosexual. You didn't even realize you had this gender fluidity in your life.
So now what we're trying to do, what the left constantly does is redefine words. They'll make up a word and then they define it and then they redefine it and redefine it and redefine it until it finally goes, oh yeah, you're one too. You just didn't know it.
Well, being a traditional heterosexual is nothing more than an effort on your part to marginalize other people, which we already established last week that you were an oppressor scale of 3. So you are a massive oppressor.
Oh my gosh.
Now you are oppressing people by being straight.
You know, I had a guy on my show that was a transsexual on Love Connection.
And did you know he was a transsexual?
No, he actually kissed me.
Oh,
he did. I mean, I didn't know he was a transsexual.
Oh, wait a minute.
And I didn't know he was a transsexual. And well, I'm talking about on the air. And the guy came on, and semi-attractive woman, you know, dressed up and everything.
The Adam's apple didn't catch you, huh?
That in the hands.
Turtleneck or something?
That in the hands. And it was funny. He went out on this date with this guy, and no one knew that this guy was a transsexual until after the show. And then the guy, I kept saying, well, did you have a good time? He said, you know, it's just something just didn't seem right.
No, so she's a man, baby.
Yeah, she's a man. So LA Herald or whatever the crap it was over in the valley wrote it up and made fun of me because this guy came out and kissed my cheek or something. And was it good for you? No, it wasn't anything for me. I mean, you know, it was like a 6'2" guy with, you know, hairy. It was weird. It was weird. It was very strange. Just like you would think it would be strange.
So this was only in your experimental days? Is this when you
not one of these guys with facial hair and anything else? It was a semi-attractive person. But anyway, I had fun with it. I thought it was kind of funny.
Was this during your experimental period?
Yeah, right. I was experimenting with a new show, hoping it would work.
So anyways, the fine people of California have put together a list of terms for us.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how many of these you can get correct.
Oh, great. Folks, it's a test for Chuck.
All right. Do you know what cissexism is?
You love your sister?
Well, spelled CIS. No, that would be called being a Lannister. That's called Lannistering.
Mm-hmm. You love your sisterin.
Yeah. When you love your sister, you're a Lannister.
Whatever. Yeah, that's true. That's like, yes. With a Starbucks cup.
Yeah, that's going full Lannister.
Prominently displayed on the table in front of.
Yeah, how did they get a Starbucks cup?
Well, because, you know, they're over there drinking Starbucks and somebody forgot to take it off the table and the editor didn't catch it. And so the rest of the world did. And they all went, you know, nuts, realizing that Starbucks didn't start in 1876. It actually started around the 11th century.
So Starbucks actually started in the North.
In the North and in the 11th century.
In Winterfell.
Winterfell, exactly.
So cissexism, that is the appeal to norms that enforce gender binary and gender essentialism, resulting in the oppression.
I don't even know what that means.
It's because you are not gender variant and non-binary. Do you understand that sexism? Here's the thing. You, my caveman friend.
Yeah.
You have this binary view of the world that there are men and there are women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
But the world is not binary. The world is 50 shades of gray. Mm-hmm. There are all these other things between men and women, these different variants. Mm-hmm. And with your cissexism, you are oppressing people. There is gender conformity.
The more things that you put between right and wrong or black and white or whatever, the more things you put between it, the more confusing the opportunity to make a choice becomes.
Okay, now I'm going to give you some stuff here I'm going to give you a list here of things. These are called politically incorrect terms. I am not making this up.
Go ahead.
Please understand.
This is coming out of Berkeley, right?
Yes.
Oh, well, the fountain of information.
Peanut butter sandwich.
Love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Yeah.
Saying peanut butter sandwich is deemed culturally insensitive to children of other cultures.
Nobody ever says peanut butter sandwich. People eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, peanut butter banana sandwiches. It's never peanut butter. It's peanut butter and crackers.
Well, it's true. The king ate peanut butter and nanner.
Well, I'm a cracker.
I'm a cracker. You're a cracker. Wouldn't you want to be a cracker too?
Absolutely. Yes. Whatever that means.
Columbus Explorers Day. This is offensive to those who believe Columbus was the beginning of a 16th century ethnic cleansing.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another word you cannot use, the word normal.
Can't say normal.
According to new guidelines, normal persons in the presence of people who are not normal should be referred to as non-disabled.
Non-disabled?
Apparently, yes. Here's another one.
What now? What more? Back that up. A normal person should be called non-disabled?
Right. Because if you're abnormal, you must be disabled.
Mm-hmm.
Here is another term that you should never use in the presence of a liberal.
Can you
I'm
imagine?
not making this up.
I know, but the thing is, I know you're not making it up, but someone spent a great deal of time doing research and thinking this through with maybe 5 or 10 other people who, hey, how about this one? And they all think it's brilliant. And then it dies on the vine because nobody cares. Nobody pays attention except those 5 or 10 people. But go ahead.
The term pet owner is offensive.
Why is that? You can't own a pet?
Because it is unacceptable to claim that you own another life.
Come here, Charlie. I own you.
You can now only say that you are a pet guardian.
Come here, Charlie. Charlie, come here. I'm trying to guard you, buddy. Not having any part of me now.
You are Charlie's pet guardian, not Charlie's pet owner.
Yeah, we'll tell him that.
Okay, another term that you cannot use, hold down the fort.
Oh, well, why would you want to hold down the fort?
This is offensive to Native Americans.
Well, they were attacking the fort. You couldn't hold it down.
Because we all know who the forts were being held down against.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Rule of thumb is now considered. I've heard you use that term.
Well, rule of thumb comes from, I guess, there's always several origins of rule of thumb, but one of them I heard was that in old England, this is like way back when, a man could beat his wife, but he couldn't beat her with a rod that was any more round than his thumb. So if you had really big thumbs, you could beat the crap out of her, but if you had little thumbs, you could just kind of switch her. Well, but that was supposedly rule of thumb.
That is the correct term of rule of thumb.
Mm-hmm.
And now to say, well, the rule of thumb on this is X, that's offensive to women because that means you want to cane them.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So every time you say, well, the rule of thumb is this, you secretly in your heart want to whip some woman with a stick.
This is so it makes you so aware of how people go back in time and try to bring it up to now. In other words, you can't get over where we've been and get to where we are because you have to live with where we've been or rule of thumb obviously was stupid and horrible and things like that. It's like slavery. Of course it was stupid and horrible. I just watched a documentary, and I think it was on HBO, I'm not sure, about Nathan something, the guy who wrote Amazing Grace, who was ship captain. But I went through his whole life and what brought him to where what he became. He became a pastor, I think, in Scotland. But it's interesting how he changed and how God really touched his life, and he became a different man. And it's like we can't get beyond our change. We are not a slave nation anymore. We haven't been for years and years and years. And there are ways to enslave people that don't require you to buy someone and put them in the cellar and turn them loose every day and make them do what you want them to do. It's a different kind of slavery today. And
the worst form of slavery is slavery of the mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what liberalism is about.
But it's like some people just can't forgive for anything that's happened. Listen, slavery wasn't just against black people. I mean, there were slaves all over the world for thousands of years.
Oh, the Irish were indentured like crazy.
But I mean, that's just one form of it. I'm talking about way before that. I mean, the Jews were enslaved by the Egyptians. I mean, it went on and on and on. So now all of a sudden we're in a slavery situation in our country. I mean, Britain was doing it before, and then they stopped. And then we're building our country, trying to do it cheaply, and we're importing slaves, and it's wrong. There's no question. But we dealt with that, and some people
we will never recover.
Well, you can recover because people make mistakes, country makes mistakes, lives are destroyed, and everything else. But you can recover from it if people will allow themselves to recover from it. One of the things we have a hardest time with as human beings is to forgive ourselves. Probably the most difficult thing to do is forgive ourselves. But second to that is forgiving others for the transgressions that they they commit against us as we see it in our eyes. But then it comes down to that one thing where we just can't forgive ourselves. And it's been, 100 years, whatever, since slavery. I mean, 120, 50, 60, I don't know how many years it's been, a long time. But we're still dealing with this. And I don't think it'll ever stop. Personally.
And yet forgiveness, to really understand forgiveness, forgiving another person, is to actually release yourself.
Exactly. But there's another side to this, and that's always, there has to be some kind of compensation or some kind of where you have to advantage the other person or that's been wronged. Well, now we're in generations long past slavery, where these generations, this generation we're in right now, they aren't wronged by it, but they said there's a legacy and all of this kind of stuff. And perhaps that's true. But all the TV that I watch, all the commercials that I watch, all the movies that I watch, all the Netflix things that I've watched, and on and on and on, I watch it, and it's like Black people are in everything. Black families, Black women, Black men. They're portrayed as heads of families, heads of state, presidents, congressmen, everything. So the restoration of that whole thing, and I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head because it's what I see and how I see it in the culture, seems to me like we've pretty much come a long way, and somebody needs to say, okay, we really appreciate that fact that you've taken, what is the percentage of Black people in our
12.8%, but they show up in 50% of television.
Exactly. So we are overcompensating for what we've done, and it's still not enough. But it's like the left, and you were talking about this thing with the Mueller report and all that kind of stuff. No matter what you do, let's put it in perspective. Trump never once claimed executive privilege, not one time. He let his entire staff go before Mueller. He let his own attorney do 30 hours of interrogation with never saying a word. He never inhibited he paid for his investigation.
But he didn't meet with Mueller personally, and that's the proof now.
I don't care about that. He did everything else, and he was totally transparent. Now, Barr comes out, releases the Mueller report, and it's truly, redacted form that should be, with all the grand jury, stuff that's in it.
400 pages of nothing.
It's 400 pages of nothing. It's more political than it is anything. And then everybody says, well, it's just not enough. So it's back to the race thing that we're into too. It's never enough. No matter what you do, there are people out there that will never be satisfied with the quality, the quantity, the attitude, whether you have a good heart, whether it's from your heart, whether you have nothing to cover up for, whatever it is, they will never accept it. And this is what I see with Congress right now, and with so many groups on the left, is no matter how much information you feed them and give them, it's never enough until they get their way. And their way is Donald Trump should be out. Everybody with him should, just
half the country should be out.
Get rid of his family, get rid of all the deplorables who voted for him, get rid of everything, and then we'll be happy. No, they won't. It'll be something else. They'll move on to something else.
Right now in the media, if you were to pay attention to the media, you would believe that white, straight males are a minority group.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it started off with this attack against boys. You remember that?
Yes.
And they didn't distinguish
toxic masculinity.
Well, that was well advanced into the attack against boys. I mean, it was like, girls and boys are exactly the same. They're not, but they are, as far as the left is concerned, because they want girls to feel good about themselves. Well, how good do women feel about themselves now? We've now put it on a par where, it just doesn't matter. A woman can take a jackhammer and throw it, 15 feet in the air and lift 5,000 pounds and drop it on your head. I mean, come on.
Well, wait a minute here.
Transgender women doing things that, I mean, they're not women, they're men. I mean, they've now taken over sports. They're starting to work their way.
Exactly. Think about this, Chuck. I could decide to go put on a dress.
Right.
And go compete in the female weightlifting competition.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or
I mean, I could literally be a champion weightlifter right now just by saying I'm a woman now and I'm going to go compete in the women's class.
Yeah. So what is that all about? What is the message behind that we have to accept this, that people are who they think they are, not what they are, and we have to redesign everything about the human body, the human mind, in order to come to this understanding.
They've got men in women's wrestling, men in women's weightlifting competition.
And what are women saying?
Well, they can't win. They're completely disadvantaged.
Why is that? Why are they disadvantaged?
Because I don't care what anybody on the left says, men are physically, as a group, not all, but as a group, men are physically stronger and more powerful than women because we have testosterone.
Well, now they can inject it.
But they still can't get there.
I know. But I mean, this whole farce that's going on in our lives about right is wrong and wrong is right, black is white. I mean, we are truly in an Orwellian wormhole. We really are. We're living 1980, whatever it was.
1984.
We're living it right now. Up is down, down is up.
It's awesome. I got to throw a couple more words at you here that are going to blow your mind.
Okay.
Christmas is offensive. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
Little sidebar. They prefer the term happy holidays.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked up the term holiday. Do you know what the core word of holiday is?
No.
Holy.
Holy day. Yeah. Well, yeah, that would make sense. Sure. Mm-hmm.
So they want to get rid of Christmas and replace it with holy days. So they're too stupid to even understand what they're trying to switch to.
Right.
The term bald is now offensive.
Bald?
Bald.
B-A-L-D, bald.
B-A-L-D. That is.
I spelled it correctly if you're paying attention.
Correct. I did. That was impressive. It's better than being not quilty.
Yeah, right. I had fun with that. I finally ended up with saying, look, and being not quilty is a soft place to fall. Leave it alone.
My God, did the media pick that up? That has been all over the place. That was the best thing you did all week because everybody in the media picked it up.
That's the thing. People don't understand my genius. I do things like that just to attract attention, and then it just spreads like wildfire, and people criticize me for it, and I went, okay, genius.
You all fell for it. You were all fell for not quilty.
Not quilty.
You cannot say bald because you are to say follicularly challenged.
Well, follicular this.
Here's my favorite.
Folliculitis.
The word failure is offensive.
Yeah. Why is that? Because it's, yeah, because you're a failure?
Because the correct term for failure is now, and I'm not making this up. I know it sounds ridiculous.
What? Okay.
The correct word for failure is non-traditional success. You're speechless.
The great thing about the left is you just can't fail. No matter how miserable your life is, no matter how you fail and cry and gnash your teeth, it's all for the good.
You cannot say the word fat. The correct term is person of substance.
Person of substance? That goes back to like the 18th century. Where
I know.
If you were a fat person, you were rich.
Yes, that does go back, but now you're supposed to use that. It's kind of like the term well-heeled. Do you know where the term well-heeled comes from?
Probably because your shoes were well put together and showed that you had money to get them fixed.
Because back in the old days, if you were wealthy, you could afford new heels on your boots. Right. You're correct. And if you were not, the back of your shoes would be worn and tattered.
Right.
That's what well-heeled. So well-heeled, which does mean being wealthy, is how they got to it.
The great thing about the left is it's like you never have to grow up. You can just pretend for the rest of your life. You can be 6 or 5 forever.
And the term homeless person is offensive.
Even though they are homeless?
The correct term is residentially flexible.
Well, I wish I could bend into that one. Residentially flexible?
Yeah, so I'm going to have to correct this.
Are these things where you just don't want to offend anyone?
Yes. Now, as you know, I'm developing a construction project down in Florida.
Right.
And so we're building hundreds of condos. And it's a wonderful.
For homeless people?
No, but the homeless people have actually taken up a 5-acre spot at the entrance of our complex.
Mm-hmm. And you can't move them.
And we cannot move them.
Because the feds won't let you or the local state won't let you.
First off, the county doesn't have a homeless facility.
But you have one. It's your property.
We have one. We have people pulling down their pants and doing business at the entryway to our condominium complex.
And I mean, it's really where we've come to. You can act as anti-socially as you want to and get away with it today, and no one will bat an eye.
The police will not remove them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is how bad it is. We're talking right now about constructing.
What about trespassing laws? I mean, they are trespassing, correct?
They will not fine them for trespassing.
Why?
Because they said they don't have the facilities to store them if they were to arrest them.
To store them?
Yeah, they don't have any place to put them. They don't have any jails to put them in.
Mm-hmm.
So they will not violate them. So this is how bad it is. We're talking about constructing a big, thick, opaque fence around a 5-acre lot to hide them because we can't get rid of them.
Kind of like a junkyard.
Yeah, we can't get rid of them. So we're literally thinking about building a fence around them so that we can hide them.
Mm-hmm.
How bad is that? And how much is it going to cost us to build a 5-acre fence?
Well, why did they? I mean, when I talk about they and them, it sounds really insensitive. Why did these people pick your spot?
Florida's a nice place.
Well, I know, but there are lots of places in Florida. You can go to a swamp and live if you want to with the snakes and the alligators and everything else, but they picked your spot. They just like the neighborhood. So apparently we're attracting people to the neighborhood. So this is kind of what's happening in San Francisco. Not kind of, it is happening everywhere to property owners and cities across our fruited plain that have opened their doors to the homeless and people who obviously can't take care of themselves. And they're everywhere. In Los Angeles, they're up and down every kind of street. Here's the deal. The minute they move into Beverly Hills or West Los Angeles, they're already in Santa Monica, but they're right on the edge of the sea. They're in the park there. They've always been there. But the minute they move into Beverly Hills, they're going to have a problem. Yeah, if they go to Beverly Hills. All of a sudden, all of those wonderful liberals who are so caring, who will feed them every Sunday morning or whatever, and have a camera crew follow them around while they're handing out soup and sandwiches, will get fed up with this. And then they'll start to move them out and do something with them and put them down in downtown LA or someplace else. It always happens. Well, think of the other thing was, I remember when Los Angeles went through a period of time, excuse me for cutting you off, but it just came to mind. But they went through a period of time where they were moving people out of a homeless situation into free housing. And they would stay there like a month or a month and a half, and then they'd leave. It's residentially fluid. Well, they just leave. No one knew why, but they would just leave and leave everything they had there or take with them what they could and go back on the street because that's what they knew. And they didn't want to be in a condominium or whatever, which is kind of interesting. I can't explain that. We have these people out here. We have millions of dollars invested in this complex, and we have 30, 40 homeless people camped out at the entryway. Mm-hmm. So imagine you're showing up at our property. There's not very many people who sympathize. Just as many say, we have millions of dollars invested. Yeah, you jerk. But my point is, we're building housing for people who want to have a nice home. And the housing that we're building is for working class people. It's not luxury housing. Right. We're building a great neighborhood and a great environment for hardworking people who work in the Orlando area. And they have to come home to seeing an army of homeless people at their entryway. Mm-hmm. That isn't right. But they're residentially fluid is what they are. So we're trying to get them to flow somewhere else, but that isn't working out. Well, hasn't that always been the problem with cities is what to do with people who who either can't or will not be responsible for themselves and their lives and their children and everything else as they just kind of spread throughout a city. It's been going on since the beginning of time, I suppose. Well, Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang has the answer. Andrew Yang? And where is Andrew Yang from? He's the direct opposite of candidate Ying. Oh, man, you took the words right out of my mouth. I can finish your sentences. Yes, that's true. So Andrew Yang says if he's president, he's going to give every last person in the country a check for $1,000 per month. He just came to Detroit to tell us all this. Mm-hmm.
$1,000 per month. It's the cornerstone of his policy. Give every American $1,000, and paying it would be part, and we would pay for it. This is easy to pay for, Chuck. Because all we have to do, we have 340 million people. So times 1,000, that's not a lot of money, right? And all we have to do is add a value-added tax on goods and services that business produce.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's that easy.
Yeah, they always find a way to take your money from you, can't they? Give it to someone else.
So if
for
we
the good of the
away,
people, of course.
So I have a question for you.
I hope I don't seem insensitive today. I just I'm kind of I'm fed up with all this stuff.
If we give everybody $1,000, so 340 million people get $1,000 a month. Think of the budget busting move that is. Mm-hmm. We're going to tax business. All we have to do.
Let's go back to the premise of we're going to give you something. Who in the hell put him in a position where you're going to give something to people who pay taxes?
Well, it's if we make him president, because then he'll be a dictator.
Well, he'll never, Mr. Yang or Yang.
When we give people this $1,000, and it's so easy to do because all we do is put a tax on goods and services. Mm-hmm. The people with $1,000, what will they do with that $1,000? Probably go buy goods and services, mm-hmm. who just got increased by enough to pay everybody $1,000.
Yeah, right.
So inflation. Now, what good is the $1,000? Mm-hmm. It's bizarre. Representative Al Green, you know Al Green, right?
Al Green down in Houston, yeah. Al Green, we have to get rid of Trump, yeah.
All right, here's what he says. Al Green says,
not the singer.
Not the singer.
No, not the singer.
No, if it was a singer, we'd have Obama here because Obama likes to do Al Green tunes. Mm-hmm. He's a very talented guy, Obama. If we don't impeach Trump, he will get reelected. He said this on MSNBC before an audience of 12 people. Mm-hmm. So what he said was, I'm concerned if we don't impeach this president, he will get reelected. If we don't impeach him, he will say he's been vindicated. He will say the Democrats had an overwhelming majority in the House and they didn't take up impeachment. He will say we had a constitutional duty to impeach him and we didn't. Really? Trump's going to say you should have impeached me?
Take your best shot, Al. I'm so sick of this whole to impeach or not to impeach. That is the question. It's ridiculous. The Democrats just have nothing. They are just a vacuum, walking around a vacuum. All they have is they hate Trump. That is it. And we're going to do something with healthcare. I always love that when they say, well, healthcare is the number one thing. That's what everybody cares about, not the economy. Well, they had their shot at healthcare with Obamacare. How'd you like that one? And everybody and all the Democrats say everyone loves it. No, they don't. They don't love it.
No one loves
it. And if they loved it, why are you constantly saying the Republicans should fix it? Not a single Republican paid for or voted for it. Only you Democrats voted for it. That was your fix, and it didn't work. So now you want us to let you fix it again. No, thank you.
Well, Al says we must impeach the president. If you don't, it's not the soul of the nation that will be at risk only.
Let's say they do impeach.
It is the soul of the Congress that is at risk.
Congress doesn't have a soul. Very few in it do. Anyway.
What will not be at risk is your arthritis pain.
That's exactly right.
You pick up a jar of Blue Emu.
That's right. That's right. Did I hear music erupt someplace because my arthritis pain went away? That's right. Blue Emu is the way to go, brother.
Yes, a simple jar of Blue Emu. It is, and you had been saying last week that it is deep penetrating.
It is, and it's real medicine too.
And it doesn't stink.
It doesn't stink. Whoever came up with that was such a great line. And
really, you like that line?
Yeah, the first person who said it was what's his name? Used to be catcher for the Cincinnati.
Yes.
Why can't I think of his name? I even know him.
No, not
Rose. Catcher. Oh well, doesn't matter at this point. All I know is Blue Emu.
Johnny Bench.
Johnny Bench is great. He's a guy's about 5'9" and his hands are about 4 foot tall.
Really?
Yes, he's enormous hands. Well, he's a catcher.
So that's why that jar of Blue Emu looks like a thimble when he's holding it up to the camera.
The jar is really this big, but in his hand, it's this big.
Well, anyways, Chuck, where can I get Blue Emu?
Well, you can get it at Walgreens, CVS, any place that has any kind of reputation at all. It's a good place to go buy things like that. You can find it. So go to your local retailer and pick it up, and you will not be disappointed.
Now, not that this is a segue from Blue Emu, but I'm going to jump into Tom Arnold.
Good night. He could take a bath in Blue Emu.
It wouldn't help.
It wouldn't help. What is it? You know, I think Tom Arnold's, here's what I think about Tom Arnold. I think Tom Arnold's career is, you know, kind of wavering, obviously going off the, you know, where all of our careers eventually go. It kind of gets over with, and it's, you know, I think he's looking for a spot on SNL. I think that's all he's doing.
And that's why he's turning just crazy, hateful person?
Exactly. Because listen, if you watch SNL lately, they're all crazy and hateful. So, you know, I think Tom Arnold is just looking for a little spot on Saturday Night Live.
Well, this is what I don't understand. Tom Arnold came out and said that he would vote for a Nazi before he would vote for President Trump. But I thought President Trump was the Nazi.
Well, yeah, I know. They're very confused in Hollywood sometimes.
I'm confused because here I thought I was a Nazi sympathizer. Mm-hmm. And now Tom Arnold is telling me I'm not a Nazi anymore.
You know, it's really funny. They take the term like Nazi and it's racist, it's Nazi, it's a bigoted, it's this. They've literally ruined all of these terms and the force behind these terms because they so overuse it. And if you ever think about what a Nazi really is, it's not a thing you can just throw around easily.
I would think it should be terribly offensive to Jews.
To anyone, frankly, not just Jews, but you know what? That's another thing that just drives me nuts. It seems like I know there are a lot of liberal Jews in this country, and a lot of them in the Northeast, a lot of them on the West Coast. I would think evaluating where the Democrats have been and what they've shown toward Israel and other things, how could you be a Jew and possibly be a Democrat? I don't, that one just doesn't register with me at all. And I know these people pay attention, and I know they're very smart.
Rashid Tlaib attacked Israel over the Gaza missile barrage. So Rashida Tlaib said that the missile barrage into Israel was Israel's own fault.
Yeah, right.
And then Ilhan Omar came up to back her up and says it's the fault of the Jews because of the occupation of Gaza. Mm-hmm. So according to Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, Jews deserve to be bombed.
Right. Yeah, this whole kind of anti-Semitism started running rampant in Europe and the Middle East. It's always been in the Middle East because the Arabs and the Jews have always been, at loggerheads. And whoever is in power normally takes advantage of the other. So you got Arabs, you got Christians, and you got Jews. The Christians and the Jews are usually together against the Arabs. The Arabs usually, when I say Arabs.
Well, I mean, let's face it, we follow a Jewish rabbi.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, the Muslims have now started to wipe out as many Christians. They started with the Jews, as many Jews who were not in Israel around the Middle East. They pretty much wiped them out. And then they started working on the Christians, and they're just basic genocide going on, and the news doesn't cover it. So now they're moving toward invading Europe and changing that culture and starting to build mosques and everything else. And it's, which was basically, Europe was at one time the seat of Christian culture. Well, it's not anymore. It's the seat of socialism, Marxism, ideology. And Islam. And they've invited them in with their religion of peace, which is anything but. And so now they're combining Islam with socialism, Marxism, and now it's beginning to spread. It's like a virus, and it's spreading here to the United States as well. So these people who are in our Congress they're just a tip of the spear. And they're all with CARE and people like that, which, CARE is just like Hamas, basically. I'm surprised the president hasn't really called CARE a
terrorist organization.
I'm surprised he hasn't designated them that. Because
they should be. Now, you see what's going on in Sri Lanka? Sri Lanka just kicked 200 Islamic clerics out of the country. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they banned burqas and habibs and everything else.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, they're not messing around over there after that Sunday attack they had. Right. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Here's what people don't understand. Christianity is now the most persecuted religion on the planet. There are more Christians being persecuted, being murdered, being tortured for their faith than any other faith. Mm-hmm. And people don't understand this. Now, did you see the video from the Muslim American Society of the Children's Group, the children that were singing about cutting your heads off?
That was really disturbing. Now, if people don't understand what this is, I tweeted this out, as a matter of fact, on my...
For Ummah Day.
Yeah, and it originated in Philadelphia, I believe, wasn't it?
It is in Philadelphia at a Palestinian school, a mosque school for children.
And there are how many of these schools throughout the country?
I don't know that number.
Like 200 and something of them.
I can tell you what they were singing. They were singing that they will liberate Jerusalem.
Children, talk about the ages. They were little babies.
Yes, these are little children who don't know what they're singing. And they were singing, the lyrics of the song were they were going to liberate Jerusalem from the Zionists and chop off their heads. Mm-hmm. Now, according to the school, the song wasn't properly vetted. They didn't listen to all the words to make sure that the kids, because we didn't pay attention. We missed the chop off the Zionist pigs' heads part in the lyrics.
Yeah.
Because that could get by you. You understand it, Chuck. That's something you could miss. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you were singing a song with your kids and the kids were singing, let's chop off the Zionist heads, you might not catch that on the first pass. And they said that the children are remorseful for singing it. Well, why should the children be remorseful? They're little tiny children. Mm-hmm. But I mean, why? And by the way, Facebook didn't ban this.
Which I find absolutely fascinating, and realizing that Facebook is a liberal arm of the liberal Marxist communist. I'm saying Marxist communist now, when before in the 50s and 60s I thought that was way over the top, but now it's not.
So Facebook banned they banned Paul Joseph Watson, Laura Loomer, Alex Jones,
and called Louis Farrakhan a right wing.
Louis Farrakhan is a right wing.
Yeah.
Twitter is now banned James Woods for quoting Shakespeare.
Huh?
For quoting Shakespeare.
Right. Yeah. If you come for the king, make sure he's dead. Make sure you kill him or something like that.
Right. So he's been banned for quoting Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm. Well, there you go.
But meanwhile, you can run home movies of children singing "Chop the Zionist Heads Off," and that's okay.
It's odd, isn't it? We live in a really strange time, don't we? What's permissible and what's not.
Well, you know who
who decides, is, right? I think the most interesting thing is that who decides that.
You know who Anna Navarro is?
I do. A fake Republican.
Anna Navarro has now said it. These are in quotation marks.
She's supposed to be the conservative on CNN, which I find hysterical.
It's a joke. She says, "I want them shut down. I want them silenced." Mm-hmm. This is Anna Navarro speaking of she wants conservatives. And this is hysterical. She wants conservatives like Paul Joseph Watson, Laura Loomer, Alex Jones, InfoWars, erased from social media. Mm-hmm. I want them shut down. I want them silenced. This type of rhetoric is authoritarian. Mm-hmm. So, in other words, Anna Navarro is saying, I want the First Amendment halted.
Well, they're always for it until they're against it. And the only time they're for it is when it's in their favor. The only time they're against it is when it's not. So,
now by the way, you're talking about CNN. CNN just did a program. I want you to picture this. You know how they put these giant panel discussions together.
They always have like 30 people on a panel. I mean, you finally
right.
Geez.
You're looking when you have a 70-inch TV screen. Everybody's face is still a thumbnail because there's so many people on the screen. It looks like the freaking Brady Bunch.
You know, it's really funny. Put that in perspective for you. I went to Sammy Davis's house one time. He and Altavus were friends. And I was at his house, and he said, I just did a special on ABC. You want to see it? I said, yeah, I would. I'd like to see it. He said, well, it's great. It's a montage and it's a dance thing. And I got this whole group of girls behind me dancing and it's beautiful. And I'm really proud of it. So come on down to the basement. And we went down, had a big screen back those days. And he threw it on the thing and it was great. I mean, Sammy could sing and he was a great performer. And I'm watching him. Well, what happened was the director shot the set. They didn't shoot him because there was so much going on that it was the set. And Sammy ended up being this big. And all the dancers were about that big too. You couldn't tell anything that was going on because the director was just so overwhelmed by the set. And that's basically what you were talking about. I never mentioned it, but I thought, what a great moment. You didn't get a close up on him. You got nothing. It was just this tiny little man doing these things.
Well, at CNN, they have lots of tiny little men and tiny little women and various other forms of binary and non-binary individuals. That are all lined up, no matter what it is they self-identify as. But this is the big blue ribbon show they had. Here's the topic. The show was, what will we do if Donald Trump does not accept the results of the 2020 election?
Holy cow. Is this just incredible what's going on right now? Everybody knows this. This one's just easy. This is not one you can get by. I mean, all of these people who will just not accept the fact that Donald Trump won the presidency. The American people preferred him over Hillary Clinton. They just can't get over it. They can't get over the Mueller report because it didn't get them where they wanted to go. They can't get over any of these losses that they're taking. They can't get over this giant lie that they live in the middle of because it's just not true. It's this fantasy land that these children play around in every day. And
this is what they're trying to put across the American people. He's a tyrant.
Well,
he won't let go of the power. If he loses the presidency, he could declare martial law and lock the country down and refuse to leave the White House.
I think Nancy Pelosi said that in so many words.
She started it.
I find hysterically funny.
But my point is, shouldn't the show be on what to do because Hillary Clinton won't accept the results of the 2016 election? Hillary and Bill right now. I got to tell you this. Hillary and Bill right now. You know how they got the Hillary and Bill tour?
Yeah, they're on this auditorium tour, stadium tour, whatever it is. And what are their tickets are now?
The front row seats we're supposed to be $1,785.
Front row seats, right?
Yes.
They're not, how much now?
At the show they just did in Seattle.
Yeah.
The tickets went for $2.
Right. Yeah.
Rusty, would you pay $2? Why would Rusty? Would you pay $2 to see Hillary Clinton?
No,
that's
and I
double.
don't think, and obviously nobody else will either. They're just people aren't interested in what she's got to say anymore, and she thinks they're fascinated by it all.
So for $2,
and have you watched Bill's kind of his, what am I trying to say? His body language when she's speaking.
Well, he's usually recoiling.
Well, he sits in a chair like this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all but it's hysterical. It's like he's going to sleep, just slowly going, oh my God.
What he's doing is
how many times have I heard this over breakfast and dinner? Will she ever stop saying this stuff over and over again? I am so sick of it, but I've got to be here and put a smile on. Yes, honey, that's right. Yeah.
In his mind, he's sitting there thinking, I think Paula Jones was a lot better than this mess I'm going through right now.
Losing to anybody. Man, I can't believe it.
I don't know what I did to God to make him so angry at me, to make me sit through this night after night.
That's got to be torture right there, boy.
Oh, it is. There's never a punishment. He's actually living in hell right now.
He's probably wondering how to get like a hat or a T-shirt or a mug or something.
Yeah, probably. Oh, well, we're at the Hammer T-shirt and mug. Hey, but wait a minute. Listen, folks.
I'm just wondering, how would you do that?
You could get one of these lovely blunt force.
That's a great name, isn't it? Blunt force truth, because it truly is what it's about. It's just, don't sugarcoat it. It's just blunt force truth.
Yeah, you can't, you know why? Because you can no longer nuance the news now.
It's just good to love yourself, isn't it?
You can't nuance the news.
No.
The name Blunt Force Truth, folks, I will tell you, was developed in a parking lot at a big boy restaurant.
Is that where I came up with that? My original was Blunt Force. What was it? Blunt Force
Trauma.
I thought, why don't we just take Blunt Force Trauma and do that? And he looked at me and went, I don't think that's a good idea. Let's put Blunt Force Truth.
So thank you, big boy, for your contribution to the conservative cause.
Absolutely. Big boy.
Well, Chuck, that about wraps us up for today.
Well, I hope we contributed to the confusion of the American people at this point in our philosophical whatever world of politics. Good Lord, it's a mess, and it's up to us to straighten it out, folks. It's our business. We're the ones that can fix it. So let's go fix it and enjoy your day.
And I want to remind people to get if you haven't done it yet, download the Podcast One app.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can download that to your phone right there at the Podcast One. You can subscribe to Blunt Force Truth. You can also subscribe to our partner at Blunt Force Truth, Laura Ingram.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of other great shows. The Federalist is there. So get that Podcast One app and subscribe to Blunt Force Truth and leave us a 5-star review.
That's it for today. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.